The summer I turned 1 year old was the beginning of my battle with leukemia. I was hospitalized and spent most of my time there with my mother. I shared a room with people of different ages, from small children to the elderly. There was one very nice old lady there who often spoke to my mother. One time she said, "I feel sorry for this little child. She is very young and already suffering from such a serious illness. かわいそう." My mother was disheartened to hear her say かわいそう, a word she believed should not be used to describe anyone battling a life-threatening illness. かわいそう is a Japanese word used to express pity. Nowadays, however, the listener, like my mother, would sometimes feel being looked down on and judged by the person who said it. My mother also felt uncomfortable to hear that word because she herself never felt sorry for me, her own daughter. Patients there didn't feel sorry for the other patients either. Instead, they were always giving strength to one another in their own way. I was only 1 year old, but the other patients became my friends and brought joy to my monotonous life in the hospital. In fact, when I lost my appetite after a chemotherapy session, they all cheered me on to finish the mashed potato I was given to help me get my strength back. My father and my mother were delighted from the bottom of their hearts, not just because I was able to eat, but also because I got the energy and motivation from my friends. I heard all about this when I was in 6th grade of elementary school. Is it a poor thing to suffer from leukemia as a baby? To me, what the elderly patient said to my mother was pathetic. I felt uncomfortable with the word かわいそう, as my mother did at the hospital. The elderly lady probably wanted to show sympathy by saying that word, but it was not taken that way. Among younger netizens or young people who are actively involved in online communities, the meaning of かわいそう has evolved and is used to show one's superiority over another. I am now 15 years old, and I don't feel that I was かわいそう at all. Rather, I am proud of myself because I battled against childhood leukemia and survived. I think that I am the happiest survivor because I have always felt the unconditional love of my parents, even during my bout with leukemia. I consider myself brave because I think people fighting for their life and facing great uncertainty are brave. Do you think we should be told かわいそう? I don't think so. That's like rubbing salt into our wounds. I believe there are many people among us who want to show compassion to others who are sick. Instead of saying かわいそう, please say, I know you are trying your best. Acknowledge their efforts by saying, I know you are going through a hard time. Is there anything I can help you with? Cheer them on as they battle against their disease. And to survivors of a life-threatening illness, give them a round of applause because they are heroes. They are heroes for providing hope to others that they will also recover from their disease. And remember, they are not かわいそう. Thank you.
These days, we often hear the words plastic pollution. And although some of you might be concerned about it, most people don't really know exactly what it is. Plastic pollution is a major problem that affects marine, freshwater, and terrestrial ecosystems globally. The ocean is already filled with more than 100 million tons of plastic. If we don't take action now, we may cause irreparable damage to our planet. According to a study report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the World Economic Forum, they calculated that by 2050, the amount of plastic in the ocean will surpass the amount of fish. If a piece of plastic enters the environment, it is continuously eroded into increasingly smaller particles called microplastic. This microplastic is a serious issue today. It is a tiny piece of plastic about the size of an ant. Since it's so small, marine animals eat them by accident. Every year, marine animals are dying due to plastic pollution. For instance, turtles mistake plastic bags for jellyfish and eat them. Plastic can decompose, so it remains in our bodies forever. I became interested in plastic pollution when I saw a turtle entangled in a rope and die. When I saw this on TV, I was shocked, and it moved me. The biggest thing was that animals in the ocean were dying because of us. This inspired me to learn more about ways to combat the problem. Learning about it, I came to realize that the main problem of plastic is that if it gets into the natural world, it is difficult to clean up. When I was researching about plastic pollution, I had the opportunity to learn more about plastic debris in the ocean. My friend held a workshop about plastic pollution issues, which he invited me to attend. In the workshop, we discussed about plastic pollution in the ocean and exchanged our opinions. After that, we went to a nearby beach to clean it up. Arriving at the beach, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was plastic everywhere. Although I knew about plastic pollution, I was surprised at the amount of debris. Collecting it all would be an endless endeavor. This fact broke my heart and made me realize the true extent of the problem. My friend makes accessories using microplastic to convey the seriousness of the problem to kids so that they can better understand it. So we all made some accessories using the plastic that we picked up. Looking at the kids who participated in this workshop, they seemed to have gained a better understanding of the problem and its seriousness. Her workshop and extracurricular activities reminded me once again how important taking action is and the cost of inaction. I used to think of plastic pollution issues as someone else's problem, but I came to realize that it affects me too. So, I decided to reconsider my daily habits. We all use a lot of plastic products in our daily life, and there are some things that we don't really need. In my case, I used to buy drinks in plastic bottles. Now, I have changed and bought myself a reusable thermos instead. I thought that reducing the use of plastic would be a difficult thing to do, but it wasn't such a burden. Also, I stopped accepting plastic bags, straws, spoons, and other plastic items that were offered at the register. As with most people, the enormity of the problem initially overwhelmed me. Then, through these small changes I have done to my daily habits, I have come to understand that even though what I do now is a small dent in the problem, there are 7.9 billion of me in the world. We can definitely eliminate this problem if we all take this action now. Inaction is no longer an option. Thank you.
Have you ever heard of the Japanese word kintore? Kintore means muscle training. Many Japanese people started to become obsessed with kintore after the pandemic began. There are also a lot of YouTube channels that show workouts that target a specific muscle group. If I told you that doing kintore 2 times a week could change both yourself and the world, what would you think? You would probably say, no, that can't be true. When I started kintore, I felt the same. However, I'd like to prove that building muscle can change both yourself and the world. Why are people suddenly interested in kintore? There are three major attractions of kintore. First, kintore makes you healthier. To build better muscles, you must be very careful about what you eat. You need to plan your meals daily while calculating calories, making sure you are eating nutritious foods and getting good sleep. This prevents you from lifestyle diseases such as diabetes. You can also do daily motions more easily and won't feel tired as often. Secondly, you will improve your time management skills by doing kintore. For example, if you want to do a workout at a certain time of the day, you have to finish your homework before. Since I started to work out, I've improved my time management skills a lot, and as a result, I finished my homework earlier, and I spent less time playing video games. Also, if we want to get good results from kintore, you must make a consistent plan for each week. I recommend using the PDCM method. The first step of the PDCM method is to set a reasonable goal, such as doubling your hours in a year. To reach this goal, you might need to do 60 sit-ups 2 times a week. Every month, you can easily measure if you are going to meet your goal by the end of the year. If not, you will need to add more exercises. You can finish your plan through this kind of method and create good habits. Having good time management skills and habits will make you successful in studying and business as well. Thirdly, kintore is extremely good for your mental health. In addition to the serotonin and endorphins which are secreted during kintore, working out gives us more chances to evaluate ourselves properly. A long-lasting recession and the pandemic can cause us to feel depressed. We may sometimes feel that we are not evaluated as we wish, even when we make tremendous efforts in our work. However, if you do kintore consistently, you can directly see your results by measuring your muscles. This will give you more confidence even when you face difficulties in your life. These are just a few of the reasons why some people say they can get rid of stress by working out, or they were able to overcome their depression. In conclusion, kintore makes you both physically and mentally strong. Your learning and working habits will be improved. You are able to better manage your schedule, and you can finish your goals when you use the PDCM method. By doing kintore, you will become a successful student or worker. I know after you try kintore, you will feel more confident and mentally healthy, especially when you face a lot of difficulties in life. The easiest way to change both yourself and the world is to begin exercising today. Thank you for listening.
For as long as we can remember, standardized tests have been an important part of students' school lives. It determines our grades, university, and most importantly, the status we receive from our society in the future. Just like people eat, drink, and sleep, students go to school, study, and take tests. Most schools evaluate both students' and teachers' skills by the outcome of their test. Even though this method has been adopted in an immense amount of educational institutions, some people are negatively affected by these tests. By reducing standardized tests, both students and teachers will be able to lessen the amount of stress they carry and the unfairness some students face throughout their school lives. An excessive amount of people feel pressured by the existence of standardized tests. According to a study conducted by Beth Ann Fulton from Walden University, standardized test scores affect students feel anxious and cause negative effects on both students and teachers. Since most schools use standardized testing methods to evaluate their students, some students feel uneasy or apprehensive before, after or during tests, which are known as test anxiety. Test anxiety can affect students' confidence, motivation, and mental health dramatically. This is caused by the pressure due to the test that determine their whole school life and what future they can have. Moreover, teachers also feel anxious as they get judged by the test scores of their students, and the school pressures them to maintain a specific way it wants to be depicted by the public. Due to these reasons, both students and teachers have to face the high expectation they receive from the parents and the school administration, which cause them to feel stressed or anxious continuously. Admittedly, some students might lose motivation to study if they do not have to take standardized tests to earn decent grades or to get into universities. However, according to an article by the Asahi Shimbun, there's a middle school in Tokyo that abolished standardized tests by giving students small tests 3 times a week. As a result, students started working harder, and it helped them not to get packed up with the large amount of work they had when they still had standardized tests that made them do all the work in a small period of time. Incidentally, stress is not the only factor that can be decreased by the reduction of standardized tests. It can also decrease the unfairness of the system, which happens to affect the minorities. According to an article by Yahoo Japan from 2020, the National Center Test for University Admissions have decided to add standardized tests such as TOEFL, IELTS, and AICAN to make it easier for some students with decent scores on these grades to get into universities. However, the representative of Chance for Children, CFC, states that this system is not fair for the minorities, such as students with lower income families. Some of the tests cost more than 25,000 yen, which can be difficult for these students to even take the test. Not only high-income students can afford these standardized tests, but can also access the variety of information to achieve higher scores. On the other hand, lower-income students cannot even afford to take these tests, hence the fees to attend extra classes to access useful information. As reported by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science, and Technology, families with more than 12 million yen household income spend 305,000 yen on their children's education, while families with less than 4 million yen household income can only spend 69,000. There's a clear line between these two groups, and the division and unfairness will only spread if we keep adding standardized tests to determine the abilities to get into universities. In this current society, standardized tests have become an important factor to determine our ranks and the ways we can live in the future. Reducing standardized tests can reduce the negative effects, such as stress and unfairness both students and teachers receive throughout their school lives. If schools, workplaces, and society keep using this method, will individuals ever be judged for who they actually are and not by the scores they receive in tests that do nothing but cause stress and unfairness to people? Or will they finally be able to break free from this negative cycle for a better future? Thank you for listening.
$127,922. This is the number of elementary and junior high school students who were unable to attend school in Japan in 2019. Those students are called futoko, which means absentees, truants, students with school phobia, or school refusers. There are many reasons for being futoko. Some say it is because of bullying. Others say it is because of incompatibility with the environment. Well, I was one of them. I have experienced being futoko twice. The first time was in elementary school. When I was cleaning the classroom, my classmates came down hard on me by saying, "You are doing your work sloppily." And when I was doing a presentation, they said, "I can't hear what you are saying." It happened in cram school too. I bore their harsh treatment from first grade until I couldn't stand it anymore. From my third year of elementary school, I didn't go to school. The second time, I became a 不登校 was in 3rd grade of junior high school. When COVID-19 forced the school to shut down, my motivation to go to school disappeared. Online classes made me feel alone. When regular school resumed, I felt guilty about being absent while everyone else was at school. I didn't feel confident that I could keep up with my classes. I went to school about 5 times a month, but I stayed at the nurse's office. When my teacher or my friends took me to the classroom, it was difficult to talk to them because there was already a group in the classroom. So I stayed alone. I thought that I wasn't needed, that it was too much trouble to bother with me, and wondered if it was okay for me to be there, if that was a place for me. I considered going to a different high school. However, I wanted another chance to change myself at 西南女学院. High school was the perfect time to try. I talked to the new students and actively participated in events. I made new friends and expressed my opinions and thoughts freely. I feel that I have changed. I was able to conquer my problem. I found a place for me. I want to continue to challenge myself in many ways to build my place. If you have a little bit of courage, just take one step, and your future will be better. Everyone can find an environment they can call their own place. There is no need to force yourself to fit in with the people around you, because doing so will only make things harder for you. However, just changing the environment is meaningless. If you do not try to change yourself, and the future will not change either. You don't have to wonder if you should talk to them or take action. If there is an opportunity in front of you right now, be brave enough to take it and do what you think is right. Even if you feel there's something to be gained, you'll regret doing nothing. Challenge yourself this way, and you can create a place for yourself. A place where you can show who you are and where you can learn important things in life. There is more than one place for you to belong, and many opportunities to find it. Your future will change depending on how you seize those opportunities. Thank you.
Every time I saw people of other races when I was a child, I thought of them as scary people just because they look different. I remember gripping my mom's arm or leg tightly and trying to hide. I know now that it was not the right action to take, but I did discriminate against those people just because they looked different. I'm disappointed about how I reacted back then, but I have actually come to learn that what I did was a natural reaction for a young child. Paul Bloom, a professor of psychology at Yale University, found that babies prefer to see the faces of people from their own culture over the faces of foreigners. It's in our nature. It is also in our nature to create stereotypes of different groups of people. Some stereotypes can be good for us, especially if they keep us from danger. What is not good, however, is stereotyping based on age, sex, and of course race, because the stereotypes we form can be very offensive, damaging, and flat out wrong. I studied in Australia last year, and my favorite subject there was psychology. In one class, I learned how quickly children could change their negative stereotypes and prejudices against another child group after an educational intervention. Basically, it is easy to change the minds of children. Unfortunately, I also learned that it takes adults much longer to change their negative prejudices as they get older. That made me really sad to hear, because it is adults, the ones who find it hard to change their negative prejudices, who teach us. It didn't make sense. I noticed an example of this in my first month in Australia. COVID-19 was spreading, and there was a lot of fear. I saw Australian adults on TV protesting against China. I also saw them being abusive to Asian people for being the one who was spreading the virus. That made me really sad to see such negativity and hatred against a group of people who had done nothing wrong. I wondered what would happen to school the next day, because there was a group of Chinese exchange students at the school. When I got to school, I was so happy to see the exchange students just joking and enjoying themselves with the Australian classmates, just as they would on any other day. That was when I realized that when we take the time to get to know people as individuals, race becomes a part of who that person is, but it does not define the person. And consequently, our stereotypes do not define the person. What I found out later was that this very concept had been developed through a special program of self-discovery that the school ran. Realizing that, I became more certain that the solution to this problem is education. All children of the world need to be taught how to identify dangerous and negative stereotypes that are based on unfair generalizations. We need to be able to question those stereotypes. Through our questioning, we can confirm their flawed nature and then embark on the most important step. We can confront the stereotypes by engaging in conversation with the people those stereotypes are hurting. But we need to learn to do that somewhere. For Japan, I think this can be done at school. We can talk to our friends about these things. We can teach each other. We can open each other's minds. Then we can share these ideas on social media. Maybe, just maybe, we can spread this across our country or even further. There is a stereotype of Japanese students being too passive. Why don't we break the stereotype by working together to destroy the much more harmful stereotype I have talked about today?
Hello everyone, I'm Tatsuki. I belong to the English course at high school. Now, what do you think of me? Intelligent? Conservative? Of course, it depends on the person, how you feel about me. Usually, I make a good first impression, and I consciously make efforts to keep that impression. I don't want to make it worse. First impressions are interesting because also they stay people's minds. They usually change. People who look blunt are often actually very kind. Or if I think a person is bright and humorous, he may really be a hard worker. And when we see an unexpected side, different from the first impression, we can feel that we truly understand the person. I would like to apply this phenomenon to solve one social problem. Have you ever heard of the word soji? That is initials for sexual orientation and gender identity, which is sometimes referred to as LGBTQs. You may have heard of this word as soji hara or soji harassment. People who are LGBTQs can be bullied at their companies, and not only harassment but sexual abuse is carried out against them. It is a nasty act that tramples on human dignity and rights. I think that harassment is caused by people who don't accept the differences between themselves and others, but see them as superiority or inferiority. We cannot choose our sexual orientation. It is decided due to various congenital and acquired factors, and we have no choice but to accept it. Being the majority does not make your behavior justified. Yet, there are still some people who treat LGBTQ people as aliens based on their animal-like instinct to eliminate something different from them. Looking back, the first impression of LGBTQ people may not have been so good. I mean, its first impression from society. In the past, sexual minorities were sometimes the object of ridicule, being called homo and okama. I think it was an era when there was no common understanding that sexuality was something given by nature and not chosen, so it may have been unavoidable. However, first impressions can change. If we base it on good knowledge and sense, it is obvious that LGBTQ people can no longer be the subject of ridicule. Just as people like different colors and foods, there is nothing strange about their sexuality. If society can overcome first impressions and prejudices towards sexual minorities, we can see others as people who are just the same as ourselves. I believe it is not LGBTQ people that should change, but society. It is best to interact with people who are suffering because they are different from the majority to get to know them. If you have no direct access to those people, you can just read a book about them. Change starts with us knowing. Our first impression is instinctual and probably out of our control. However, I think that we can change it using our intellect and imagination. We should be able to do that. I am me. I may look smart, but math is difficult for me, and I'm worried about it every day. I may think quiet, but at home I sometimes scream with happiness about my favorite game characters. You are you. We should be able to create a society where everyone can accept themselves as they are. Thank you for listening.